Okay, shalom, everybody. So, I don't really know where to start, except to say, in one way, I understand how you're feeling. In another way, I haven't had your experience. And so I ask for your patience if something I say doesn't match your experience. Yeah. So Boaz asked me to say something that would be comforting. It's hard to say something comforting in this kind of situation because what I understand, at least from reading some of the interviews of people who have lived through what you've lived through with the Hamas attack, that there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fury. There's a lot of confusion because you had the impression that the government was tracking and the intelligence services were tracking it. As it seems to turn out, the intelligence services were tracking it, and they tried to tell the government, but the government did not want to hear. Bibi was not listening. So that is water under the bridge, okay? The thing now is how to deal with the fear, the anger, how to learn from the situation and go forward with it. I'm sure your concept of Israel now is different than it was on October 6th. Yeah, you thought that there was relative security. There was no thought that Hamas would do this. There was no thought that, you know, in a week or two you would be engaged in a war that Bibi says is going to last a long time. Yeah, and there's no idea that there would be about 250 hostages taken, some of them who are your friends and your relatives. So the whole thing is shocking and horrifying. And at the same time, we are Dharma practitioners. And whatever experience we encounter, the thought training teachings recommends that we transform adversity into the path. So this is the perfect time to do it. Now, that's easy to say, transform adversity into the path, because when you're angry, you can't say, no, I'm not angry. You have to really sit down and apply the antidotes and work with the antidotes for a long time. Yeah. And it's hard to say, oh, I'm not afraid, when you are afraid. Okay, you have to really work with the antidotes. And you're probably experiencing a lot of other emotions too. So you can't just say, you know, well, what do you expect of me? That I'm all full of love and compassion? You know, of course not. Okay, but some of the things that I think we can learn from the situation that I've used when I've gone through difficulties is thinking about impermanence, thinking that the nature of samsara is dukkha, unsatisfactory, suffering, and to remember that there's no inherent existence. And also to think about karma. I find that very effective. So some of these different things may be more or less helpful to you as individuals to think about. I'm putting them forth as ideas, and then you can see what fits where your mind is at and what's going to work with you. Okay? And some things, you know, you may have a lot of resistance to hearing. Okay? So for example, if I talk about karma and how karma is involved in this situation, yeah, that what is happening now isn't just from the causes that you know, happened in the preceding months or preceding years or since Israel became a country, okay? That the causes, many of the causes come from things that we did in previous lives. And when we are unhappy, that is an indication that this is negative karma ripening, okay? The way to deal with the ripening of negative karma is to say, good, I'm glad it's happening. Now, I know that's hard to hear, but whenever somebody was miserable, this is usually what he would say, yeah? I know one time I came to him with a big, you know, quite mentally just upset about something that happened, yeah? And he gave me a talk about karma. I have a friend who had a huge boil on her cheek, ran into Rinpoche, and she just wanted, you know, him to feel sorry for her. And he said, fantastic, your negative karma is ripening as this boil. You are so fortunate. Of course, that's not what she wanted to hear. But when you think about it, and we are Buddhists trying to put into practice the teachings we've heard, it really is true, you know, because if we have negative karma, then it can either, you know, as Dharma practitioners, if we think correctly, when we experience suffering and misery and inconvenience and whatever, if we think, oh, this is good, it's purifying this negative karma, and it's better than it ripening in a horrible rebirth, if you think like that, it actually is becoming purification. And it's true that we, you know, can go through this difficult situation as human beings. Yeah, it's difficult. We'll go through it. And it certainly is better than eons in an unfortunate rebirth. Okay? So if you look at it from that karmic viewpoint and say good, then you can transform this into something that really propels you on the path. Okay? I think what's also helpful, and oh, I should say also regarding karma, as we know, people change karmic roles in different lives, yeah? And in one life, if we are the oppressors, in a next life, we might be the oppressed. Or if we're the oppressed in another life, we might be the oppressors. Things change, yeah? There's no fixed identity. So when you think of Hamas, you know, those people, first of all, you know, they could have been Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto, you know. They could have been our parents in previous lives. They could have been the people that we loved the most in previous lives, but due to karma, due to the fact that everything in samsara is impermanent, or every functioning thing in samsara is impermanent, we change roles, they change roles, we change mental stations, mental attitudes, mental states. Nothing is fixed, okay? And so when you think of Hamas, don't think of them, you know, and it's so tempting to think of them as they are inherently existent monsters. There is nothing good about them. They are horrible people from beginning to end and even beyond that. Hopeless, negative, barbaric, that's it. Well, according from a Buddhist view of the world, you know, nobody is evil. And it is too simple to dismiss people as evil or as monsters. It's too simple because that justifies us in being angry. But when we're angry, yeah, I'm not saying you shouldn't be angry. I'm just saying the result of being angry is that we put the imprints of negativity in our own mind. So do we want to do that? No. Yeah. Do we want to see other living beings as monsters and as inherently negative from, beginningless time until endless time? No. If you want to see people like that, you're never going to become a bodhisattva. Yeah, impossible to become a bodhisattva, because we have to cultivate love and compassion for every single sentient being, omitting none. So this is the challenge now. Yeah, it may not be a challenge you want or one you expected, but, it's something we can certainly learn from. Yeah, and so when you think of, first of all, you have to separate the Palestinians from the Hamas. Yeah, they're different. It's like some people mix up Israelis, Zionists, and Jews. There's some overlap, but they are not the same. Okay, so Palestinians and Hamas are not the same. Okay, so we have to look at, well, how did some Palestinians become Hamas? It's due to, some of it's due to karma, some of it is due to experiences that they had in this life. Yeah. Now, change places with them. If you had gone through some of the experiences they have had in life, maybe you would think in exactly the same way as they think. Yeah. And especially being Jewish, and maybe this is because I was raised Jewish, in America, which is different than being raised Jewish in Israel. They're two different ballgames. But I was always taught you stick up for the oppressed people. Yeah, I was always taught that. So in this situation, who's oppressed? Well, the Israelis were oppressed by the horrific attack that Hamas made and killing so many people. But the common people in Gaza, the common Palestinians, yeah, were living in basically a ghetto. Yeah, they're basically living in a ghetto. They couldn't go in and out freely. When I was hearing about that, I was thinking so much of the Warsaw Ghetto and what happened during the Holocaust and people living in the Warsaw Ghetto and being incredibly oppressed. And then things exploded. They totally revolted and exploded. And of course, it was put down. Yeah. So the Jews have had that experience of oppression and explosion, and I think the common Palestinians have had it too. In different ways, in different situations. But what my point is, to see that the human experience is very much the same, no matter where you're born and who you are. Yeah. And not to just put people in categories and sign off on them. Yeah. Okay, so the average Palestinians, they're grieving their families, and the Israelis are grieving their families. Okay, can we empathize with each other? Yeah. Okay, the men who are fighting with Hamas, how did they become that way? They had certain conditions happen to them when they were young, and they became terrorists. Actually, You know, at the founding of Israel, yeah, the Jews who had been living there were stuck, you know, a lot with the British. The British are involved in this whole mess too. And they exploded, and they did attacks on the King David Hotel and so on. So what we want to do as Buddhist practitioners is understand that the influence of causes and conditions that make people do what they do. And because people are conditioned phenomena, they are not inherently evil. They are not inherent monsters. And in a future life, we can be friends. In a previous life, we were families. Even in this life, it's possible to change relationships. Okay? So to keep that in mind so that for your own benefit, you have an open heart and an understanding heart towards others. As difficult as that may be, work on it. Because the more you can do that, the more peaceful you're going to be inside, the clearer you will see the situation. And the clearer and with more wisdom, you will be able to act to, you know, ameliorate the situation. Mm-hmm. So please, you know, keep your warm heart. And, you know, Jewish culture, there's a lot of warm heart there. And Jewish culture, we also bicker. So that's the way it is. But as Buddhists, as Jubus, you know, we want to train our mind in love and compassion and bodhicitta as much as we possibly can, because that's really going to be the path to peace, not only as societies, yeah, but also as individuals, to have peaceful and kind hearts. Yeah? So also have a kind attitude towards yourself. We cannot blame any one person or any group of people for October 7th. We would certainly like to point the finger and say, them, you know, they did it. So maybe you want to point the finger at Hamas, those evil people. Maybe you want to point the finger at Bibi. He did it. You know, he was so involved with all his judicial shenanigans that he didn't listen to, you know, the people advising him. It's so, you know, falling to anger just, you know, it justifies our anger, and anger just creates more and more negativity in the world. Yeah. So if you can see all these people, one thing I do, I'll tell you what I do. Because if you look at American politics, I don't know how much you know about American politics, but we had 4 years of an outrageous president. Yeah, dear Donnie. That's what I call him. So if I wanted to, I could be so furious with what Donnie did and what he's still doing and the harm and discord he is causing in America. Yeah, and the way he, you know, did in the past and is currently really ruining so many relationships among people who were peaceful before. So if I wanted to, I could get really good and mad at him. What good does my anger do? Nothing. Okay. What good does feeling sorry for myself do? So, you know what I do is I imagine if I had grown up in Donnie's family, what would I be like? So I think of Donnie as a little baby. Yeah, little babies are adorable. It doesn't matter who they are, what color their skin is, what their parents were. Babies are adorable. Yeah. So here's this person that I think is like messing up the world. But he was once an adorable little baby. And if I had seen him in the supermarket, I would have, you know, made faces and talked to him and played with him. Okay? But then I think of how he grew up and the pressure his father put on him and the pressure, you know, he went to a military school, I assume because he was acting out so much that his parents couldn't control him. That's often one reason why they send their son to a military school in the US. Okay, so that could have been the situation. And then somehow he learned to lie. There was an attorney in his life who kind of taught him how to manipulate people and lie. And I have a feeling that, you know, his father and family members did that. When I think about how he grew up and what modeling his parents had for him, you know, to him for how to be an adult, you know, if I had grown up in that same family, I would have been like him. If I had grown up, you know, in Gaza as the child of a Hamas person, or even without my parents being in Hamas, you know, but just experiencing what they did, I probably would have thought like them too. I can't say, oh, I'm so pure in mind. Yeah, I'm not. I have all those defilements. Yeah, so rather than judging other people and, you know, giving them a name, putting them in a box, now I know everything about them, you know, to really have some empathy and think about how did they become that way, you know, and when you begin to see them as dependent arisings, then we begin to see also that they are empty of inherent existence. Yeah, they arise dependently. They don't have some solid core that is always the same, that always thinks the same, that always acts the same. They're changing all the time. We're changing all the time. Nothing is concrete. And I find that really, really helpful to think about in these kind of situations. It's a product of causes and conditions, and I can't control it. Yeah, and it will change. For sure it will change. It cannot remain the same. So what is my job? My job is to help it change in a productive way. Help it change so that the people in Israel can be happy, that the Israeli Arabs can be happy, so that the people in Gaza and in the West Bank, so all of them can be happy. My job is to contribute something good to this mess. Yeah? Okay, so I'm sorry I can't meet with you. I wanted to very much do a Zoom call with all of you, but right now I am in Singapore, and then I'm going to Malaysia, and where else? Indonesia, and Taiwan, and India. So I can't be online with you. I can't be with you in person right now, but my heart is definitely with you, and, you know, definitely with you. So I wish you all the best, and, you know, come out of this as radiant, shining bodhisattvas.